And I know it's been several weeks since we celebrated Valentine's and since we got done with February, the month of love. But, that shouldn't mean that we stop thinking about love, because love is part of our lives. Or I should say the pursuit of love and the preservation of it. Relationships are quite difficult to manage, and, you kind of have to humble yourself and let go of your pride and of your ego and to talk to the person that you love. And for them to be willing to talk to you so that you can make amends and settle some of your differences so that the love can continue. And congratulations to Mr. Douglas Mayanja, also known as Weasel Manizo. It looks like that's what he did. He and his sweetheart, Sandra Teta. Apparently, Sandra Teta has finally returned to his home in Makinde. As you know, there was that controversy that erupted over a video. Was it a video or some pictures that came out showing that she had sustained some injuries?
There were pictures
to her face, and it was alleged that she sustained those injuries courtesy of Mr. Weasel. And she left Uganda and had been living with her parents in Rwanda since, at least for the last 6 months. And finally she's back and back home with her husband. So that's also, I think that's very nice. I don't know if they're married, so maybe they're just together.
They're not married.
Oh, okay.
They're just living together. They have 2 children together. Yeah.
Lovely. And she is a rather beautiful woman. And, well, are you surprised? We know where she hails from. Well, so while speaking in an interview on local television, Weasel, who couldn't contain his excitement, said that, you know what? Oh, my baby mama is back home. Yeah, you see, men are unromantic, but the way we love the ladies, we are so happy when they come back to us, you see. So it's very good. Hoping that now they will not engage in the same kinds of arguments and disrupt, dysfunctional behavior that will lead to even more injuries and more breakups.
That altercation was definitely not the first they had. And you see, if someone is an abuser and this is not the first time they're doing it, they are most likely going to do it again. And one may be wondering, why do people go back to their abusers? Because they normally do. They go back. And there are many things to consider when people go back to their abusers.
And I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but I do believe that it may sound controversial to say, oh, go back to your abuser, but I think there's a part of a person that can appreciate their role in the escalation of a conflict.
There is that.
So, for example, if let's say my wife misbehaves, let's say I get home and she has ripped up my shirts. Obviously, she shouldn't do that, but if my behavior may have contributed to her wanting to do that, it seems like I owe it to myself and to her to revise that behavior. So maybe I won't be out drinking all the time at night, or I won't be running around with the prostitutes, or whatever it is that annoyed her to become angry enough to tear my clothes.
Tear your clothes.
All right. Or if you are a woman and maybe you got into a fierce argument with your husband because maybe he found you in a bar drinking with other men.
Or found you texting other men. Yes, is it wrong that he overreacted? Yes, is it wrong that it got violent? Absolutely. But at the same time, I think a smart person can at least acknowledge their role in the crisis. Right? So not that I would ever justify any form of violence or any extreme behavior on the part of either party, but you also have to be responsible for your part in the situation. I agree with that.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree.
So perhaps Sandra Teta was there in Rwanda and she said, you know what? Okay, yeah, he shouldn't have laid his hands on me, but maybe I also shouldn't have been out at a bar with dudes.
Except according to Daniela Mayanja's posts, this was not the first or even second time. And of course, other people alleged that Weasel is actually fond of beating his woman, and he has done this many times. But you see, women sometimes go back to their abusers. I don't know why men go back to their abusers, because some men are also abused.
I'll tell you why.
I need to do more research on that.
Sex. Sex.
Sex is overrated.
We love dysfunctional women because they typically are the most passionate lovers. A woman will bash you over the head with a baseball bat 1 minute, and in the next minute will be giving you the kind of makeup sex that you can only dream of.
So you're telling me right now that there is a man out there stuck in a domestic violence situation because the sex is good?
Why do you think Johnny Depp stayed with Amber Heard?
Do you think it was the sex? I don't even think she was giving him any.
I'm speaking to you as a man. Pay attention. Chicks who are psycho are great lovers. They just approach lovemaking in a very unhinged, no-holds-barred way, which for a lot of men is powerful. Because a girl
when you say unhinged, what do you mean? Please make some noise.
I mean,
for those at the back.
her legs will be flying everywhere. She'll be trying all kinds of positions. She will be doing things to different parts of your body that a normal woman wouldn't. A normal woman, like when I say normal, as in just normal, sensible, plain Jane, like ordinary chick, no issues.
I thought I'm normal, but I'm not plain Jane.
But what I mean is someone who's mentally okay.
Okay.
You're going to get into bed with her, and the lovemaking will typically be conventional.
Than usual.
It'll be the usual menu.
You're preaching like the missionaries.
Yes, the usual menu of positions and activities.
But that is sensational.
Yeah, but
it is.
I'm not saying that's
essential.
bad, but like with a chick who is a psycho, yo, it's on another level.
Helicopter and chandelier styles.
Yeah. And also because the emotions will be a lot heightened because of the tension that exists between you two. So the sex will also be a form of release, emotional release.
So is it like the type where I see this in movies where people are tearing off each other's clothes and slapping each other?
Exactly. You make me so mad. You make me so angry. I hate you, but damn it, when we have sex, it's amazing. So it sort of amplifies the feeling of the sex.
Please, if you're listening, don't try this at home.
No, but I'm just being real.
You may want to start some sort of wrestling in your home to act out what Fatboy is describing. And end up with a black eye.
But for the sake of your own personal safety, I would advise men to forego the promise of otherworldly sex or unbelievable sex. Go for the vanilla sex, the conventional boring sex. At least you'll have peace in your life, and your tires won't be slashed, and your windscreen of the car will be intact, and no one will be trying to kill you.
But actually, in my opinion, one man's vanilla sex is another man's unconventional, because I've read lots of literature and I've had conversations with people, men and women, who actually say that some styles have been branded vanilla, but they are not that bad. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I don't know what you mean. Perhaps you can elucidate.
Anyway, going back to women and why they go back to abusive relationships. Sometimes it is driven by the basic necessities of life. And according to Psychology Today, they are not financially secure, don't have anywhere to go, and do not want to live in a shelter.
I can see how that can be a factor.
Because let's face it, in most relationships, the men earn more than the women, and they're like, for instance, Weasel and his woman, Teta, hosts nights in bars. You know those girls that make some noise in a bar. Yeah. So I don't think she earns that much money. Actually, the altercation started from her working at night. She came back in the morning. Actually, she didn't come back in the morning. He went to the bar where she had worked and beat her from there. And probably, in as much as his career is not doing so well like it used to when radio was still here, he probably has more money than she does. So at the end of the day, you have these two kids. You have this abusive man, but probably away from abusing you, he has been taking care of the children and he has been providing. You weigh and you're like, okay, to stay here and struggle or to go back. And some people are also used to the whole idea of family, however messed up it may be. They want to be in a relationship. They want to have that whole idea there is a man here and we are a family.
I would advise women to remain in difficult marriages. Too many women are quick to leave because, and this is going to sound like bad news, but your long-term relationship prospects are severely compromised as a divorcee. Because, presumably there might be some children in tow, which already makes it challenging enough I'm not saying no man will ever consider you, but it's harder for sure. And then when you depart from a marriage, your attitude is going to be there is constantly better out there. If you've been willing enough to depart from a marriage in which you may have even started a family, your tolerance for difficulty and strife is much reduced. So that the next time you start dating, it won't be long before you see faults in the new guy, and then you'll think, well, I might as well get out there and find another and another and another. So
is that such a bad thing, though?
It is, because in the long run, no man will satisfy you, and before you know it, you're going to be approaching 50, and you haven't settled with any, and your prospects for attractive men dwindle, because at that age, it means there's only a certain quality of men you'll be attracting.
You see, there may be a point in what you're saying, but also I find it a slippery slope to tell a woman to stay in a difficult marriage, because first of all, we need to describe what difficult means. There is difficult because he's probably stepping out of the marriage all the time, but he's taking care of the family, and probably he doesn't even show you until you go looking into his phone, and then you find out
that sounds like a good marriage.
That there is some.
That's the ideal marriage, isn't it? Or that's as good as
from a man's perspective.
That's as good as it can get. I'd have to say.
So yeah, that's why I'm saying there is that where you search for trouble and you find it, and then there is the one who turns you into a drum. He's beating you whenever maybe he's drunk, whenever you question him on something, like you become literally he's a small drum that he beats whenever he feels
I'm inclined to think that narrative is part myth and part exaggeration.
Not myth. Statistics are there. Domestic violence cases are on the rise.
Yes, they are, but
in the country.
Yes, but research also shows that domestic violence, by and large, is mutual. In its most highly occurring form is mutual violence. In other words, couples are fighting. Hey, come here. No, don't talk to me. You come here. I said come here. No, you go away. Don't touch me. So finger pointing moves to shoving, moves to slaps, moves to blows.
And the question here,
it escalates.
And the question here is there will be verbal artillery exchanged, but then who throws the first punch? And also,
and usually it's the woman that throws the first punch.
But who is more powerful?
That's the problem. It's because it's typically the man, by virtue of his strength, he will be the one to land the finishing blow. Meaning that if anyone comes to see the aftermath of the violence, it'll always be presumed that the man was at fault. And yet, they could have been fighting. She could have started the fight, but because he's the one that ended the fight with the decisive blow.
Let me ask you,
he's the bad guy.
If I slapped you and you punched me and dismantled my jaw, or I even lost some teeth, would you still go and say, "Oh, but she started it. You are stronger. What happened to walking away?" I'm not saying stay there so that you become cannon fodder for her, but also I need you to recognize that you're stronger. Anything you do, you're going to cause so much damage.
So if you are aware,
might as well just walk away.
So if you are aware that I am stronger, then why do you start up by doing me?
Maybe it started with something that you did. Do you ever consider that? Because I don't think women just go out there and start looking for trouble with their men. Except the borderlines you say that are good in bed.
Okay, but
and those are a small percentage.
Just to go back to the point of why I think it's difficult for ladies is because, obviously at my age, when I'm dating at all, it's usually going to be people in their 30s and 40s, ladies, and many would have been divorcees or things like that. And you you see how they approach the dating. The mindset is very much of on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. It's like they have a very small, low tolerance for BS. And if they sense anything wrong with you, rather than try to work it out with you, they'll either ghost you or they'll just move on to the next man, because after all, they got you, so they could probably just as easily
the next guy.
Get someone better. And especially with online dating now, with the Tinders and the Bumbles, it's even worse, because now partners have turned into commodities. So she just lights up her Tinder and sees what else is out there. If you're giving her crap, right, or if she's unhappy with you. But then you see, a relationship requires a degree of tolerance for discomfort and inconvenience. And so because you've been conditioned to think men are easy to replace, you end up replacing. until you're now 55 years old.
I don't think women go on replacing.
So you might as well stick with the annoying husband you have now. Work it out.
No, there is trying. I agree. When I'm married, especially for me, when I'm addressing relationships, in as much as I'm not married, I like to, address them from like a married person's perspective. If a marriage is hard or a long-term relationship is hard, you don't just walk out when there is hardship. You try to fix things. You try to talk through things. You seek marital counseling if possible. But if you reach a point of no return, I'm also an advocate of, you know what, you did your best and it didn't work out.
Well,
and I suggest this for both parties, whether it's the guy or the woman. Like, if you have done your best and you can look back and say, I tried.
But women really, I feel like they don't try their best.
No, we actually try. The one thing you never acknowledge, Fatboy, is that by the time we leave you, and I've told you this many times, by the time I leave you, by the time a woman decides to leave a man, she left a year or two back. And before she even left a year or two back, she had these conversations. She tried to fix things with a guy and he couldn't hear her.
But I think we are misunderstanding the definition of fixing. Fixing doesn't mean you come to me and tell me a problem and walk away.
That's not what I mean.
That's not fixing. Fixing means, hey, can we meet in the middle? You see, because I can be in a situation with a girl, and I think in my more serious relationship that I've been in, and there've not been many, but one of them, essentially, someone has a minor grievance, all right? And maybe just keeps quiet about it. Maybe, which leads me to have the impression that either
everything is okay.
It's cool or it's not a big deal, but deep inside she's counting that as a strike against me, you see. And then she's racking up those strikes until she gets to the point where she says, okay, I'm done with this guy. So when she dumps me and moves on to another guy,
you'd assume that
she's going to be telling her friends, that guy gave him so many chances. I hang around him for all those years.
Okay,
and yet I would not have ever had a conversation with her in which she sat down with me and said, hey, James, look, here are the things that are of concern to me about you. Here are the things that I want us to be able to discuss. Like nothing. You guys just keep quiet.
Okay, I am not the just keep quiet type. I like to talk about things, but I also I agree that some women are bad at communication. Though I also believe that they try. Do you know, most men would rather sweep things under the carpet. You guys are not emotionally wired like we are. So in most cases, you don't want, if we've talked about it today, you don't want it to come back again because you're like, we handled that. And sometimes I feel like, yes, we talked about it, but we didn't talk about it to the full extent of how much talking we should have done.
And the problem is a lot of these, I would say many of these issues are unsolvable because a lot of them boil down to a woman's feelings. They may not even have anything to do objectively with any particular action,
and that's the thing,
or
you're
lack of an action.
With an objective situation.
So essentially you're dealing with how she feels about a situation.
Yes.
Okay? And I feel, at least in my experience, I've quickly realized that a woman's feelings is something I have no control over. Like, you can do nothing for a woman and her feelings are sky high for you. Like, she's loving you, she's feeling you, and yet you can do everything for a woman and her feelings are down here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe, yeah, you got her a nice handbag, but hey, that's not her favorite color. Yeah, you threw a surprise birthday party, but...
So, you know how to make things easy for you? Try to get to know your person. If you know Olive loves red, like you always say that I love red, and you're my boyfriend, maybe when you decide to buy me, what do I wear in red so much? Dresses. Buy me a red dress. Don't go and buy me a green dress. Have you ever seen me in a green dress?
Actually, the solution that I have found is the best one, and it is outcome independence.
Okay.
As in, rock with the chick for as long as she's feeling you and the energy's there. If you start to feel losing interest, don't try and fight it. Just let her be in her element, in her space. And if she's drifting away from you, let her do that. Or if she's drawing closer to you, let her come to you.
You
don't fight it.
Now
you
you're contradicting yourself.
You let it be.
You just said women don't like to fix things. And now you're saying let her do her thing. That is not fixing anything.
That's because,
at the end of the day, you're back to where you started from.
That's my point. So because the times that I have tried to fix things, it's been a fool's errand. Because a lot of times the problems she's citing are unfixable. It's about, you see, she is feeling that the vibe between you has changed. She's just not feeling attracted to you the way she used to, partially due to the fact that the mystery has now worn off. You're now just a regular dude. You're no longer
You're not
exciting.
trying to excite
these aren't things you can fix.
No, you can't fix. If you used to take me out on dates.
Let me tell you.
No, hear me out. If you used to take me out on dates, if you used to, we used to go away for a weekend every now and then. Because in most cases, when people get married, they stop doing everything they used to do to woo us before they married us. I recently read a post where a guy was like, I used to party with my girlfriend, now wife, and she doesn't know that now that she's my wife, she's not supposed to go anywhere. But me as a man, I'm supposed to go and hang with my buddies. I'm like, okay, so you let this happen during courtship and suddenly you want to turn things up. Just like that, you've not had a conversation. You just want to become boring. You just want her to stay home. Yet when you were courting her, you let her be.
That's also a problem, which is why I go in and I've had to recalibrate my approach to things. I will always approach a person now in my true element. How often have you heard me say I'm boring? I don't like going out. I like being in the house. These are things I say up front and proudly, because if anyone is to take an interest in me, I want them to understand that this is who I am. So one thing you're never going to hear anyone complain about is, oh, I changed.
I think showing up as your true
the complaint
self
you're going to hear,
yes.
if you hear any complaints, it is going to be, oh, I didn't change into perhaps what they wanted me to be. I stayed the same as they found me, and maybe they saw potential in me to become something else which was not realized, and so now that's the reason that's the reason for them to exit, to dump me, to ghost me, or whatever, in search of greener pastures. Fine. So my approach to it is just outcome independence. Like, if you're feeling me, if the energy is high, boom, let's rock.
Let's do this.
Let's rock. Because the last thing I ever want to be in is in a room with a girl who has no energy for you. Yeah. I remember that in one of my relationships. Like, you could literally see the girl feeling disgusted being in your like, she just felt like, oh,
but one thing I know,
someone save me.
One thing I know is that
like, I never want to see that again.
I don't know what the correlation is between us and feeling disgusted when we do not feel the man anymore. Suddenly, even kissing him, you feel like
you don't want him to touch you. You don't,
like, when he touches you, it repulses you.
I'll give you a simple.
I have no idea what causes that.
I'll tell you.
What?
Usually they're falling for someone else.
No.
Usually they have.
No, it has happened to me before when I wasn't even seeing anyone else.
Because in my instance, I found that obviously her heart was now shifting in another man's direction. And when that happens, and it'll happen, your girl or your wife will develop a crush on a guy at work or at the fellowship.
Just like
or
my
at the
guy will
Rotaract.
have eyes for some girl wherever he
But I'm
hangs
saying,
out.
but during that period of time when she's infatuated with that new guy, let me tell you, you're going to feel a different energy from this chick. She's not going to want to touch you. She's not going to want to talk to you. She's not going to want to sleep with you.
But when she's
you.
Arranging her clothes for work, the next day you're going to watch her, carefully putting her skirt on the bed, the lingerie, and you're like, why is she blushing?
Nanti, so for me, I don't fight that. I'm like, be in your crush. And
but crushes are good for the soul.
If the crush expires, if it ends, or if you guys have your fleeing and it fizzles out, hey, if I still like you, I could still rock with you. If you want to come back to me with the old energy, I'll deal with you.
But
no problem.
There is one thing as humans, and I think this goes for both men and women. One thing we don't really recognize is that sometimes flirting with someone else is good for your original relationship.
I don't know about that.
I'm telling you, because do you know how many marriages are being saved by affairs?
People keep saying that, but we're going to have to revisit that topic.
Maybe we should get a married person to have this
because
conversation.
I do have doubts about that. But if
you
think,
because honestly speaking, especially for long-term affairs, what would explain a man having an affair for years on end with the same woman? Sometimes they don't even have children. I remember I used to have a boss that had an affair with someone, and they were like it was a known secret in the organization.
Men and women are different.
But
apparently the rules were you do not conceive, I'll take care of you, I'll do everything for you apart from that one thing.
Yeah.
And they seemed happy, so I'm thinking in my mind that probably that relationship was contributing to the serenity in his own marriage.
I think that it's a more nuanced subject, mainly because of the difference between men and women. Because as you know, for men, for them, emotions don't always lead the way when it comes to sexual affairs.
Yeah.
Whereas for women, when she's sexually attracted to someone, usually it means she's also emotionally leaning towards him, which
actually,
means it
for
will
women,
affect.
it's all good until we have sex with the guy, and then the oxytocin levels are going through the roof, and suddenly we feel like we love this person, we are attached to this person.
A guy can sleep with his wife in the morning, sleep with the mistress in the evening, sleep with the wife the next day, and it feels normal.
So are you telling me that a guy can sleep with the same woman for years and feels nothing? Like he's not emotionally attached to that person?
But it's expressed in a different way, is what I'm saying. He still loves her and is emotionally attached, but the emotions are not attached to so much to the physicality aspect of the relationship.
They're attached to what else?
Well, what she represents, the stability she represents in his life, if they happen to have children together,
No, I mean with the other woman, not the wife. He loves the wife, no question about that.
The other one is just a entertainment.
4 years.
Yeah.
No, my question was, can a man have an affair with a woman for years and not be emotionally attached to that woman?
I feel like it'll depend on what the situation at home is like. If the wife at home is still a very caring and loving woman, chances are he'll still remain fully devoted to the wife. I'm not saying he'll have no feelings for the mistress, but I don't think the feelings will be as strong. As the feelings that he has for the wife.
I guess that explains a lot, because I also hear the argument that men are not emotional, and I agree, men don't think like us, men are not wired like women, and men can have a mistress or many mistresses and not feel any attachment. But also I've had stories of people that have had mistresses for like 5 years. Maybe they don't even have children, and I'm like, okay, are you still telling me that he's not emotionally attached to that mistress of 5 years? Come on, make it make sense.
The best way I have of explaining, and maybe I'll just summarize this, the best way I have of explaining the dynamic of how when it comes to problem solving, I feel like women are the biggest impediments, is because in my life I have only ever said to one person that, you know what, I don't want to be in a relationship with you, we should end it, we should part ways, like to formally announce it. It has only ever happened once. And if in that instant the person had said to me, well, that is very unfortunate, I am hurt to hear that from you, however, can you suggest to me what you think I can do in order to make you change your mind? She never said that. If she had said that, and I had listed to her some of my preferences or my particular needs that I felt were not being met, and she had turned around and met those needs, I'd have changed my mind immediately.
I think you're expecting someone to be rational in an irrational situation.
Whereas when I have been on the receiving end of the pink slip, when I'm the one being dumped, which has happened more times than I can count, and in instances where I have asked, what can I do? Tell me what to do. And I will change, and I will do that, and I will be that. Tell me. I'm listening.
You don't strike me like the kind of guy who does that.
Not anymore. I had my simple
moments. Okay.
And the person just looked at me and said nothing. So do you see what I'm saying? Is that for chicks, it's emotions. Whereas for men, it's more logical and action-oriented.
Action or logical, whatever you want to call it.
I could have built her a skyscraper.
But this is the thing.
I could have taken her on a vacation.
Thank you for saying you would have built a skyscraper.
Listen, it would have done nothing to change her mind about being with me anymore. Whereas if a girl that I was dumping had turned around and did all the things that I said I wanted her to do, in that moment, I'd have changed my mind.
But you see, this is why I have trouble with men who say, I would have done this for her if she had said this is what she wanted. Because I believe that during the course of the relationship, she tried to tell you what she wanted. That's why men propose to women in public, expecting them to say yes, because probably she has been bringing up the topic of marriage and he refused to have it. And now that she's slipping out of his fingers or has already dumped him, he tries to, get her into a chokehold, propose in public so that she can't say no.
So explain to me why I, as a man, would take a girl back if at the point of me leaving the relationship, she pledges to do the things that I'm asking her to do, whereas a woman will not. What's the difference?
The difference is that the things you want to do for me after I have told you I'm leaving you are probably the things I've wanted you to do and you ignored me. So right now it doesn't make any sense.
So, but you haven't answered my question.
I have answered you. I don't know which answer you want.
My question is
the best answer I can give you.
It's like this. Essentially, it's precisely the same situation, but we're just inverting the roles, where I may have had issues with a girl who, let's say, for example, doesn't cook, doesn't do her hair in a way that I like, or doesn't dress in the way that I like, or doesn't behave in the way that I like. I may have raised these concerns and she did not take these to heart, and at some point I say, okay, I'm exiting the relationship. If she says to me, okay, now I hear you, I will do all of the things you ask, will you please stay? And I'm saying to you, I would not say to her, oh, but I told you before and you didn't do anything. No, I'd take her back. I would take her back. And yet you as a woman, you would hold it against me that I didn't act on it at the time you believe you raised the issues. And
it's not believe. Don't make women sound crazy, like they don't know when they raise something.
Of course. What are you talking about, Olive?
What are you talking about?
Here's the thing. Women want it's almost a cliche how you want us to read your mind. If you ask a woman, what do you want to eat? You're not always going to get a clear answer. In her mind, she thinks, as my man, you are supposed to know what I want by studying me. And in asking me what I want, in her mind, it's a failure on my part as a boyfriend for not being perceptive enough to anticipate her needs. Men are judged for this. I think you don't know that. So if a woman feels that there are ways in which I'm falling short, I can guarantee you, Olive, these are things she will not have elucidated over the course of the relationship.
I believe she will
just hold them in her begrudgingly. And she'll wait for those slip-ups to accumulate.
If you talk to someone about something over and over and they don't change,
you think you talk about it, but you don't.
But you see, the more if I over bring it up, then you know what you're gonna call me? I'm going to be a nagging girlfriend or wife.
But you rarely bring it up even once.
Because it is a thin line between raising some issues so that it can be addressed and being nagging. And you guys are quick to think and even say that, oh, she's going to nag me again. Here we go again. I mean, simple things like, babe, we need to talk. You don't want to hear it. You're even freezing. You froze for like a microsecond.
I'm just trying to take myself back to situations where that may have happened. Admittedly, they've been very rare to non-existent. I'm usually criticized for not having anticipated a woman's needs in terms of what flavor of ice cream she likes or what kinds of clubs she wants to go to.
Why are we even talking about ice cream flavors? Are you dating 13-year-olds?
No, I'm dating women who can occasionally act like 13-year-olds.
Whoa, wow. You need to change the places where you find your women because what's this?
Women are women, believe it or not. But that said, to Mr. Douglas Mayanja, better known as Weasel Manizo, and the love of his life, Sandra Teta, let's hope that now they will have worked out their differences and that they can enjoy a peaceful coexistence.